Hello, Amanda. I thought this would be the best way for me to explain my madness, the complexities of the things that I've been putting together, by simply showing you as briefly as I can while trying to get the major points out. And I'll also provide a link for you as well to the map itself. But I thought this was the best way to kind of explain where I'm going with this. So regarding Holcomb, basically my idea is to extend Center Street to include the southern portion of Holcomb as near Plum and Virginia as possible, because I recognized something during rush hour. Automobiles are attempting to take a downtown route to the freeway or to downtown events after work. But basically, they're taking Center Street to get to the freeway rather than taking Wells, which my friend takes because he, has a different way of driving. But so this map here that you say, by the way, this is right here in Adobe. Whoops. This is literally in Adobe Illustrator directly. And one moment, I have to switch artboards. Artboard number 1. There we go. Here's artboard number 1. So we're looking at over here on this side, we're looking at where the red experience is, Sprouts, CVS Pharmacy, major commerce center, major hub for arterial traffic. Okay. And as we continue this way, this is north or northwest. So, what am I doing here? Okay, so this is the existing infrastructure that we have. I've mapped out every single artery, side street, and as many alleyways that I could pinpoint that are publicly owned. There are some driveways that are privately owned, so I didn't include those in here because there's no jurisdiction for those. I don't know how familiar you are with the history of the infrastructure for Reno, but I can kind of point out a couple of things. Holcomb used to be the right-of-way for the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. That's why it exists. In fact, I'm pretty sure that originally it was probably just like a dirt road on the side of a railroad. And then after 1950, when the Virginia and Truckee went under, they took up the tracks. And by the 1960s, they attempted to turn it into an arterial road. And that didn't work out, so then they calmed it down. Good call, in my opinion, because it's primarily residential. In addition to that, it goes nowhere. It really does. It basically hits a brick wall the moment that you get to Mill. Now, why is that a problem? It's a problem because for those people heading north, trying to get to the freeway, are taking Holcomb and then, as we've pointed out with the traffic calming measures that you presented today, when you get to Sinclair, people cut into a small 2-lane residential neighborhood street, cut through Sinclair. Why? Because that connects to Lake. Lake connects up to the freeway, 1 block away from the commotion of downtown traffic. The people are trying to bypass it. Okay. Unfortunately, nothing we can do about that. If I were a designer or an engineer back in the 1960s, I would have connected Holcomb by a bridge, a car bridge, to Valley Boulevard. But that's neither here nor there. Where that's opportunity has long passed us decades ago. So what's the next best alternative? Well, Virginia Street in Midtown is very congested because it's trying to stick everything onto one street. Meanwhile, half a block away, we have Holcomb, which is wider than Virginia Street. And then it makes it impossible, or not and then, but it makes it impossible to do that because people are still trying to reach Center Street, essentially, or get around Center Street. And so it's kind of creating a deep vein thrombosis in the infrastructure, right? It's creating a blood clot that's basically it's clogged. Okay. So how do you unclog it? Well, okay. So let me show you. this is the existing. I'm going to go to phase 1 of my plan. Notice what I've done here. I'll give you a moment to take a look at it here. At Mount Rose, Holcomb begins, curves, and then when you get to Burns, divert the traffic at the park to Center Street, where they're trying to get to in the first place. This converts Holcomb into a small, quiet residential street. Filtered permeability allows bicycle traffic to get through the areas that the cars cannot. This is disentangling the road network for different modes of transportation. Real quick, let me show you. Red means arterial, orange means collector. The light beige color is a small street. Light gray is an alleyway, and then the cyan is cycle or micropath or whatever euphemism people want to use. Okay, so what we're doing is after Plum, people can either take Wells or they can take Holcomb. Technically, I would recommend to rename Holcomb Center Street, because Center Street would begin here and continue on unimpeded, and people can get to the freeway the way that they want to. It would convert this road into a 3-lane road. It essentially would become an arterial all the way down from where this mess is right here, which I'll address in a moment. In addition to that, the plan that RTC is currently undergoing some survey with what I found out tonight was called the Active Transportation Plan. Great name. I like it. It's much more active, quote unquote, active, you know. How do we deal with the cycles? Well, during this Dutch, the Dutch Embassy conference and everything, a lot of ideas that I had already been played around with were finally looked upon by, you know, others in a way that was understandable to them. I mean, I've been doing this stuff for months, so I'm glad. It was kind of like a primer for a lot of people that attended. So, which is great because more people kind of have to understand the concepts. So the cycle track, I think, should be 2 sides of the street on Lake. Why Lake? Because Lake connects to Evans. Evans connects to the easternmost portion of UNR. People need to have a way to get from UNR to Midtown, and not just Midtown. I would argue that we need to have a way for them to get all the way down to Plum, the gateway to Midtown, where the red experience is, where the condos are, where that entire park and theater and commerce area, that all needs to be directly accessible by cycles. So this cyan line stops through Sinclair because it's a minor residential neighborhood. It doesn't need to have cycle paths. But the moment you come to Holcomb, if you notice the cycle track here at Holcomb, people can merge onto it. And then now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see what I'm talking about here. People merge onto the cycle track on Holcomb. It's a 2-way cycle track, north and south, okay? Goes past the park, goes past the RTC Rapid bus stop, has a 2-way cycle path to connect people up to South Virginia in Midtown, where a lot of commerce happens, but continues south on a 2-way cycle path all the way to Mount Rose, because Mount Rose is a very popular cycling road, okay? In addition to that, I have continued the cycle path through this area right here. What is this? This is the former right-of-way of the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. It still exists. It's nothing except random parking, okay? All we need is 10 feet. we could have 10 feet along these little scattered areas of what is still considered Holcomb. This here and this here is Holcomb. And they're just used as nothing but local access way for the beauty school here. And I forgot what this other thing is here, but it's right next to where that roundabout is on Wells. Okay. Once you get here, then it takes a turn, goes across, connects up to Gazaza, and continues, curves around here and goes directly into the parking lot of Sprouts and CVS. Why? Because that's the route that we're taking anyway. We're just, believe me, people are doing this. It's dangerous. They're jumping the curb. They're doing whatever they can to get here, but this is how they get here. So this would connect it directly past the CVS pharmacy drive-through, and it would connect up to the roundabout here at Locust. And then it would cut across the street here at Plum. And so that way it could connect people up to the Red Experience here and here. Now, the reason why I put another cycle path down here is because that's where the RTC Rapid bus stop is at the Red Experience. So it's definitely needed something there. This little loop, this curved road where Wells begins, was someone's idea in the 1950s as a way of encouraging traffic to take this route. Unfortunately, it's outgrown its usefulness because, well, number one, Regency Way. I don't know why it's like we have two collector streets to get onto Wells when one would have done just fine. I think someone's idea for building this roundabout in the 1980s or 90s was, I think it was around maybe close to 2000, was that we need a roundabout because we have this junction here and we need to slow traffic down. That's kind of the wrong way to do it, actually. What you need to do is you need to have continuous sidewalks, and that would have done the same thing. So no roundabout required here. I think the other reason why is because they couldn't quite figure out how to have a roundabout in this area. So that's actually what I've figured out. This is what I've learned, put together. Phase 2. Roundabout, an actual Kitsky/Neal roundabout with a cycle track that goes around it. It connects up all of the major intersections, all of the major streets here. South Virginia, Holcomb, Wells, and then the side streets. This alleyway, which has houses living on it. You have to be able to get access to those. I know because I've delivered their mail before. Kazaza, and then these two, I don't know if these are corporately owned or if they are civically owned, but these two little winding streets that get connected up to Lakeside. And then this tiny little two-way road that's kind of used as sort of like a service connector for the backs of the buildings here. This one roundabout solves all of the problems that you're having with congestion using I'll go back to the previous, it's like, that's a mess. This fixes it up. So two-way cycle path on Center Street. Center begins at this roundabout. Two-way. Why? Because this is like the bicycle artery. This is the way that people can get from Plum, Sprouts, CVS Pharmacy, all the way up to UNR without any hindrance other than the occasional red light, which would be reduced down as much as possible because you wouldn't need to have lights anymore, because Holcomb would be turned back into a small, quiet, 2-lane residential street. The traffic would still be diverted to Center Street at Burns. Get rid of the roundabout at Mary and South Virginia Street. That was unneeded. Again, it was probably used because they couldn't figure out a way how to connect a 4-way intersection while traffic calming and making it, pedestrian safe, right? Well, this is the way that it will be fixed up without having to deal with a roundabout. It's a very tight roundabout. Most of the buses can't even make it around it without jumping the curb. It's just, it doesn't function properly. The same thing with the roundabout at Wells. Get rid of it. Now, as a result of this blue area here is land that would be regained for commercial development. So the existing businesses that exist here, make a deal with them and say, hi, we'll give you a brand new building if you wouldn't mind being over here where all of the rest of the commerce is, right next to IHOP, right next to CVS. We'll put you with the other businesses. We just need this land back. This automotive dealer right here, they're basically just using gravel, which has never been fixed up since the 1960s. It's just kind of, it's like we have a cell tower building here. We have a little salon here. We have the Jelly Donut, and we have a laundromat. I'm sure those can be completely easily relocated with brand new facilities provided to them, of course. Right here on this side of the street, on over here, and we would be getting rid of Regency, so there would be plenty of expansion area here. It would be simplifying the development areas and the infrastructure at the same time, while providing full bicycle infrastructure that is raised cycle paths that are on the side of the road. No need for buffers. It's simply built into you just basically make 10 feet of concrete or asphalt and bam, you're done. Now, on South Virginia Street, if you haven't noticed by now, I have turned South Virginia Street into a one-way street from Liberty down to the roundabout, which the roundabout I'm calling Midtown Gateway. Okay, this is the gateway to Midtown. It's essentially a distributor cap for traffic. One big fat strode right here, and then multiple smaller one-way roads here, except for Wells, because that's a destination. Rule of thumb, use one-way cycle tracks on each side of the street if it's a street that has a lot of complexity, that is tight, that is a destination street, okay? For collectors or arterials that do not have a lot of complexity to them, where speeds are faster, put a two-way 10-foot wide cycle path. Why? Because when you have high amounts of traffic, cycle traffic, when you have a high amount of bicycle traffic, it is safer and easier to get around one another when you have a striped lane rather than having 5 feet on each side. And 5 feet on each side complements the ability to stop at a cafe, at a restaurant, at a Ace Hardware and all that. That's essentially right there. Like that's, and then the parking would buffer those 5 foot wide cycle paths. So that's why on South Virginia Street in Midtown, since that is a destination spot for many people, it would encourage slower driving, more buffers, and yes, this means redoing this entire street again. I really wish that they would have gone with what the cycle community wanted originally, which was to have actual cycle paths on Virginia Street. These Charos are unsafe. They're hostile to us. The cars are hostile. I had a U-Haul try to run me off the road the other day because I was, quote unquote, taking up the whole lane. I didn't have time or patience at 35 whatever miles an hour to point up to a sign at him saying bicycles may use entire lane. He was trying to get me off the road because he was complaining that I was taking up the entire lane. There's only one lane. There's nowhere else for me to go. So I'm not going to, risk getting slammed by an opening door just to, because I can't cycle more than 20 miles an hour, which South Virginia Street should be 25 miles an hour max anyway. So I don't know what this guy was thinking, but so how would people get from here to here? So here's Sierra Street, and here's Liberty, and here's California. So California and Liberty are both two-way streets. Sierra Street is not. It turns into a two-way street right here next to Peg's Glorified Ham and Eggs and the church and the coffee shop and everything. So this essentially is acting kind of like a roundabout, because people heading south on Sierra, they might want to make a left turn heading east on Liberty, or they might want to continue further south and then continue to California. So the point is that people going north, they can take Center. People going south, they can take South Virginia Street. And then it's simplified because you can, like I said, no more roundabout here. And it's a destination spot. So it's built like a destination spot. Now I'm going to take you to the next map here, which explains the details about how this would work without a roundabout at Mary and Burns and Center Street and South Virginia Street and Holcomb. Like, we got 5 streets. No wonder you guys had to make a roundabout. There was no other way to do it. And if you didn't do it this way here, this diverts the traffic from Holcomb to Center Street at Burns. It increases the developable land for both Junkie and the gas station. Okay. All of this dark blue area basically means this can be completely fully developed. Okay. All you would have is a very wide pedestrian path and a two-way cycle path connecting Holcomb to to South Virginia Street. And I would restore the RTC bus stop at this location. There used to be a bus stop there. They got rid of it because there's no room for it when there's a roundabout. Well, there's room for it again now. So right here, 2 lanes headed south. We have restored parking all the way along South Virginia Street. So that could be metered. That's more revenue for the city right there. If people want to get gas, they can head south and get into the gas station, and then they can circle back around and continue south, or they could go north using Holcomb, which has been turned into Center Street. You see how this works? So what I'm doing is I'm providing the direct freeway access for those intending to travel from Plum in Virginia to downtown, where the I-80 freeway connects up at Sierra and Center Street. I'm just giving them what they want, rather than cutting through into Holcomb, which then creates that problem at Sinclair. I'm all on board, by the way, with the whole traffic calming idea at Sinclair. I think it's a wonderful idea. There's no reason for us to have such acute angles, the triangular angles of each street along Holcomb, because there's no more train there. We don't have a railway preventing us from being able to better serve those junctions. However, minor point, as someone pointed out several different times today, I came up with this idea months ago. It's like filtered permeability at Sinclair and Holcomb for cyclists, because that's a cycle freeway. That's a highway. Okay. So this here would be the new Holcomb, a very simple 2-way road. That's essentially, it's a residential street, and it terminates right here at, I forgot what the name of the street is. Hold on. Let me see if I don't have it labeled, but, darn it. I can't look up the name of the street. Anyway, you might be able to look it up. It's simply just a 2-way street. Now, the reason why I didn't have to worry about the rest of these is because this is all commercial. They already have their own parking lots. When you get to the residential area here, they need to have on-street parking. So if you noticed, there is no having to deal with buffers or anything for cyclists. The 2-way path is right next to the park, right next to the RTC bus stop, and it's separated by at least 20 feet of both pedestrian sidewalk and green space. This brings back green space with trees and everything. So we're using the right of way that's, the Virginia and Truckee wide right of way to provide beauty to this area. Essentially, it kind of extends, it widens the whole park out to Holcomb. It would be beautiful. Okay. And then as you travel north or south along Holcomb, the curve, the slope is very wonderful for cyclists. And you would have, basically retaining wall here. You can either have a steep slope right here, or you can just basically create a walkway here for people trying to get down this way so that's ADA compliant. I'm coming up with different ideas here. Nothing's completely in stone. I'm just trying to, basically all of these lines are just suggestions, visual suggestions here. At Burns and Mary and Center and everything here, the reason why I made this area of the pedestrian area so wide is because it's needed, especially if people are going to be parking on Holcomb to access Midtown. As someone mentioned during the meeting tonight, people use that parking area to access it. So there's going to be, I anticipate, as population and the popularity of Midtown increases, this is going to be a pretty big area. Plus, it's right next to two different bus stops, north and southbound rapid stations, right? So you want to have a lot of open walking area, and trying to minimize the width of the crosswalks, so that way they don't have to traverse a large amount. The other thing too about this, and I didn't draw them yet, but continuous sidewalks are a good thing, especially if you're trying to keep traffic down. What a continuous sidewalk is, essentially, is a big, wide speed bump. Americans call them speed bumps, which is kind of an oxymoron considering it's a slow bump. You're trying to slow people down. Okay, so it's a slow bump, except it actually has some functionality rather than just being asphalt in the middle of the street. Your sidewalk is the speed bump, or your crosswalk, excuse me. So there would be, basically it slows traffic down. People don't want to ruin their suspension. So they're going to slow down to whatever the design speed of the road is. And that would be one way to filter people's speed. Here, if you notice, there is no crosswalk. Now, the reason why I drew it like this, cycle tracks and crosswalks can both be used together, like shared access. Think of it as the same way as the Riverwalk is. It's a 20-foot wide span, and both pedestrians and cyclists use it because it's the tall pyramid bikeway. Think of it the same way, okay? Especially when it comes to high traffic areas for multimodal. You don't have to have two different types of modes of traffic, especially since in this area, it is a very tight squeeze. In order for me to get this bus stop where it is, and if you notice that the cycle track goes behind the bus stop, not in front of it, a very important thing. This whole area is going to be crowded. There's going to be people here at the boba tea shop. There's going to be, so this is vacant land right here. Right here is craft beer. Right here is a auto insurance place, or bail bonds or something like that. This is like this is the core of Midtown. This is the crux, the center of it all. So that's why everything is here, because this is where people are trying to, people jaywalk here all the time. So this is trying to take care of that situation. For those that don't want to have to walk all the way over here, next to Junkie, they can cross right here. So basically I put these crosswalks exactly where they are currently, minus the roundabout. Mary Street, you can actually see what I'm doing here with these darker gray areas right here. These are continuous sidewalks. Basically, the height of the street rises up to meet the level of the sidewalk. Cars are forced to slow down as they approach the pedestrian area, as they approach the cycling area. It's a complex road. So even though this is a one-way street with two lanes, Notice that the lanes are not super wide. These are not 12-foot wide lanes. They're going to have to take care of one another to make sure that they don't have an accident. That convinces people to slow down. This area should probably be 20 miles an hour. This entire street here should be 20 miles an hour. That's the way that the Dutch would do it. They do it, I think it's 30 kilometers, which roughly translates to about 20 miles an hour, until you get to Vassar. And then all of a sudden, look what happens. So you get to Vassar, and there's enough width in the room, in the roadway, to suddenly have a 4-lane, one-way street. So as you get, and this is usually where as soon as the bottleneck is passed by, this is usually where motorists speed up around you when you're on a bicycle, usually honking at you, flipping you off, things like that. This is where it happens right there. So let me remove all of the rest of these so you can actually see see how it widens up there. This is unfortunately, this map was taken, satellite data was taken for this map prior to the reconstruction of it. But actually, for my purposes, was actually a good thing, because I'm trying to simplify this down without having a roundabout and without all of the reconstructed stuff. So it gave me the visuals to like a kind of a blank canvas to be able to do all of this. But yeah, all of this is continuous sidewalks with tight lanes, lots of parallel parking on the sides, nice wide cycleways and pedestrian access ways. And none of it requires any roundabouts or anything. You're basically you're creating a design speed of the road that matches a destination spot rather than a major artery. Okay. So yeah, this is what it really comes down to. I can't tell you how, what's the word? I believe that this is the way to go. Yes, it would take a lot of money, but not as much money as redoing things over and over and over and over and over. I can't believe the taxpayers put up with this, but you know, we'll do what we can, right? So this is the way I would do it. Someone at the meeting that I was showing this map to said, well, how do we get access to Holcomb? And I'm trying to explain to them, well, why would you want a ton of cars on your street anyway? The way that you access Holcomb is from Vassar. You take Vassar, you make a left turn right here, and you make another left turn right there, and then you can access your small, quiet residential street. Now, if you really want to, you might be able to have like another crossover right here. I didn't think it was a good idea, so I didn't include it in my visuals, but would be possible if you really want to. But the whole idea behind this is to disentangle small streets from collectors and arterials. That's pretty much it. Holcomb should be made the arterial. That's why I asked that question tonight. Is it considered an arterial, a collector? What is it? And it's like kind of like in this ambiguous limbo of a road, all because, you know, the railroad isn't there anymore. That's really what caused the whole thing. So yeah, hopefully this was informational. I have a ton more of these different types of maps. I've been working on this for months. Since May, actually before May, I have been working on creating a master plan, a holistic master plan for the entire area. I actually have a map that I am starting to put together that goes all the way from Spanish Springs down to Carson City, to include all of the arterials and everything to make this plan so that way things can work as the population increases. So hopefully this met you well. Thank you very much, and looking forward to talking to you later. Take care.